Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to the Joyful Path and the Tuesday Telecast. And we have a surprise for you today, which is why you haven't heard about this.
Why are
Matt
you so
Allen
big?
is next to me. It's because I'm closer than closer
It's
than
like
you.
being next to Chewbacca. Not because your hair or the face, because you're so big. Chewbacca's very big. Yeah. Anyway, hi everybody. How you doing?
And I've got bricks in the middle of me too. So, welcome, Matt Allen from Kudos Miracles.
I'm actually from England.
Matt Allen from England, here in Vermont. We just came back from being live in New York City with our friends Karen Pascal and Joan Williams at the White Label Expo. And now we are here. Matt has come up on the train to the capital of Vermont. And we're going to talk to you about Kudos Miracles. Now,
Can I just point out there was many other friends other than Karen and Joan. Not that I'm very keen on Karen and Joan, but there was a lot of look, we won't do the list, but there was many.
There were
Hi, everybody.
so many people there. We originally went to see the White Label Expo for our friends Karen and Joan, and everybody and their grandmother showed up. It was fabulous. We had
I missed the grandmother. I shook everybody else's hand. There wasn't a grandmother.
You were on the phone.
Oh, well, probably.
We had Dr. Terrence. We had Dr. Marcia. There were a lot of doctors there.
Yeah, there always is. Don't know why.
Yep. And Mark Pfister. He's not a doctor.
Yet. Maybe soon.
Oh, maybe you will be soon.
Oh, I doubt that. Jimmy?
And Jimmy? Yep.
Who else? I think that was it. Not bother with anybody else.
And Mr. Ed.
Mr. Ed. I'm going to send Mr. Ed this later on WhatsApp, and then Mr. Ed can watch this. Mr. Ed is super cool. If anybody needs a driver in New York City, don't phone Mr. Ed because he's my driver now. I just want to point out, everybody, that this is weird because I've not actually done one of these where I'm actually sat next to somebody else.
Yeah.
I'm usually very alone.
Right. Sad. Me too, obviously. So this is the Joyful Path, and I'm going to get us on the track of joy because we're doing something together with a lot of other people that's really, really
that sounds like
path.
The wrong sort of show for me, but sorry. Yes, we are. Many other people and a lot of joy involved in the middle of that. Yep.
So you notice that the banner right now says Kudos Miracles. And Matt is, if you don't already know, the visionary behind Kudos Miracles. And we are founders. So what is Kudos Miracles and why is it a joyful path? Because it's unifying people, believes in people to have a more joyful future. And it's a lot of solutions toward that end. So Matt, what made you come to a place where you wanted to do this, where you got the inspiration to do this?
So yeah, Kudos Miracles is basically big solutions for all of today's biggest problems, and it all comes about through people, because people are not the problem, people are the solution. And all the time we are getting told that we are actually the problem, or if we're not the problem, we're creating the problem, or if the problem is not created by us and is not us, it's just a problem that we need to foot the bill for. Many years ago, I'm not going to say quite how many, I came up with my original idea for what I term as a social benefit network. That means that it's a bit like a social network today, but all about benefit for everybody who's involved, not just with the particular solution, but because the solutions reach far outside of what they actually solve in themselves, but they enable us to do things like medical research into real treatments and cures for illnesses that we might all experience or have a loved one who experiences. And so they spread out into beyond platforms that we design and build, and solutions that we deliver through people being the miracle in those situations, into anybody and everybody around the world could see benefit from the things that we do. I think the question was sort of how did I come about doing that, and what's the purpose to?
Yeah, because honestly, people oftentimes, especially on this channel, have some sort of thing in their life that is not satisfactory. That's really, really a painful thing, or a painful life. And then we somehow get help, or we lift ourselves up, and some of us on this path, because we're spreading that joy, that peace, we lift others up. And that's something that you're doing with this movement. So, what made you do that? What, for someone who doesn't know you, what's the, and believe it or not, there are people who don't know you on this channel. What is,
hello to that one person, wherever you are. We'll send mountain rescue to find you, because you've obviously been stuck up a mountain somewhere and never heard of me. I have a long-standing medical sort of rare condition that causes a lot of complications. Some of those are pain, so we'll concentrate on pain. And those pains are and have been quite severe, quite limiting, to the fact that at some points I've been classed more disabled than what it currently may be. For instance, I used to use a wheelchair for a period of time, and I was fully blind at one point. Now I'm just partially sighted, so there's definitely something to be joyful about. Right. But part of the problem for me is that with this rare condition, medical research, the healthcare industry, although they give me some support, let's say, they can't and may not be interested in solving my particular problem. My particular problem could relate to many other people. For example, diabetes in general. If there was a solution to that, then many people around the world would benefit. In fact, not just diabetics, but also obese people and people with other conditions. And by solving something like this, it would be potentially possible to extend people's lives and save some lives and make those lives that people live both happier and healthier as they get older. Some of the things that we experience are results of conditions that really shouldn't exist in our world today, because there are simple solutions to those. But the money is not in the simple solutions, or at least not for the organizations that present the current solutions. They're more interested in satisfying their shareholders today rather than worrying about people for today and for tomorrow. All they can see is what's in front of their nose and how to make sure that they get hold of that. Really, what I set about doing was to change the world for me, in the sense of getting a way to provide medical research that could mean that I could live a healthier and happier life, like I say. And then as a result of that, the implications not just for me and my condition, but people all the world over. One of those social benefit network things is that we can provide real healthcare solutions, cures, treatments that are non-addictive, potentially, that are short-term, in the sense of once that has happened, once that we understand what to do, then a condition can be resolved in people. And also to present things like preventative measures, and not by taking medicine, but by understanding simple things about life and how we can look after ourselves better. Many of my friends, our friends, some of them doctors, as we've mentioned, some of those people are very keen on these things, because What they really care about is not money, but people. And that's one of the main drivers behind Kudos, is that really money, sure, we need it, and we need to be able to run, especially if we get to the point to being big businesses. All of the solutions need to be run in a very proper and profitable manner. But it's not about the money, it's about people. Because I don't really care about money, I care about people. And the resulting action of caring about people is that there is more money, because ultimately people want to use goods and services that benefit all of us. And if you see, that all fits together in the sense of becoming this social benefit network. And all of the solutions fit together to make all things different for people and all things benefit for us all. And as a result, we would live in a much healthier, happier environment and world.
Mm-hmm.
That's the simplicity of it.
That is the simplicity of it. And there's so often something that we have a barrier to when we're not in a state of being able to be healthy or being able to be happy. And when we get to that simple place, like, it all becomes kind of clear. But yet we, because of this lack of healthcare for some people, or lack of good food, even when we have all the food available that, kings and queens have ever had in history and more, we're sold food that doesn't make us healthy. In fact, makes us sick, but makes somebody else a lot of money. And instead, when we just take care of ourselves and take care of each other, it's amazing how it works out. Like, it works out really nicely. And it's a very simple idea, and obviously takes some infrastructure, but when everybody's working together, there are solutions. And so right now, we're heading to Las Vegas in
right now. Can we finish this first?
And then... Sure. Okay. We're going to be there in just a few short weeks, the end of June, for a conference. This is the second global conference, and that is about homelessness. Everybody is gathering around this homeless solution. And the cool thing about it is, these are people who are thriving now, who are helping us with this, and who have been homeless. Now, how often are we taught to really judge people who are homeless? That people who are homeless, like, gee, that's too bad, but they need to figure stuff out. They need to, that we each, and we're taught that it's not about taking care of them, that they have to stop living off of society and living off of the government. And when you look at it, how many people watching this have been homeless? And how often was that really, you may blame yourself, but how often was it really your fault? Was it your circumstance that you were born into? Was it that your job laid you off? Was it that you don't have the access to education? Is it that you don't have the access to interviewing well because that's not how you show up, and you haven't been taught? Is it that housing has gotten so expensive that you can't do that and take care of your kids too? Or anything else? And then the people who are going to be speaking at this conference are people from all walks of life. I'm not going to say who they are right now, but who have lifted themselves to a tremendous level and are now helping us to lift everyone else. And that's the beauty of it. Everybody working together.
Again, we're back to that social benefit network, people getting together and sharing and supporting one another. And it's not all give. Yeah. All of the solutions are all about everybody benefiting. And that ranges from a user through to the people who are in control or developing the platforms through to the wider community of planet Earth, humanity. That's the point, is that now, in lieu of any other time in history, now is the time that we really need to band together and come together in friendship and love and support and find a better way, find a new way that really changes everything. And I do mean everything, and I do mean change, because most people, if not almost all people, realize that there's so many problems and so many difficulties. And in fact, that's quite often what I experience when I watch some shows, is people talking about problems. We mentioned Mr. Ed a minute ago. Mr. Ed is a driver in New York City. Whilst we were driving around New York City, not just casually driving around, but to airports or
trying to get somewhere.
Yeah. Having chats about just life in general and what people's experiences, and how many people are living slightly different lives than what we dreamt of when we were small, and we used to be asked, what would you like to be when you get older? And some of us would say, oh, I want to be happy, or I want to live in a house, or I want to have this job, or I want to do this, that, and the other, or I want to get married at this age, or I want to have X number of kids, or I want to have a wonderful dog like my little Luigi down here. And unfortunately, life now is not quite what those dreams are when we describe them, or at least when we thought about them.
Yeah, I'm looking right now at, if this is an unusual way for you to see the joyful path out there in the audience. Usually the audience is seeing either the background of my music room or another background. And here we are in front of this brick wall. And it's like it's glitching out. It's sometimes I look like I have bricks on my head or in my hair or in my nose, and that's like we get the vision of what we want, and we're told if we work hard that we'll get that, and then it glitches out. It doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. And all of a sudden, all these strange things show up that really don't make sense. And we're just told that, hey, we haven't worked hard enough.
Can I make sense of that a little bit?
Yeah.
So the reason why that is, and I can talk about my country, and this is a system that exists rather than necessarily anything else. But in my country, you live a life the same as we do in every other country. And my country and every other country around the world, economically speaking, they tell us that we have a life expectancy. And they tell us what that number is in different countries, because it's different in every country. And in my country, let's say that I don't know the exact figure for this year. So let's say that it's 72. Now, as you get born and you grow older, the first part of that is that you go through education, and the system of education empowers you to do a job. And many of us nowadays have stepped away from the jobs that we trained to do or were taught to do when we went to school or university or whatever in between. And that's because we're not really happy doing those jobs. We'd prefer to do something else that we feel more inclined to doing, more of our life purpose, if you like. And then from education, we move into that job historically. And what happens is that we go about doing that job, and we get told that the aim of doing that job is to buy a house on a mortgage. Usually, some of those jobs are much more productive, and so you end up being able to buy it straight out. But let's imagine that it's on the mortgage. And we work very hard to pay off our 25-year mortgage. And then at the end of that, we get told that we can retire and enjoy our lives. Now, there's also a parallel system that works in my country, particularly, from my point of view. And some other people may have different points of view about this, but this is the way that I see it, is that, number one, we go to school and education, and we get taught on a conveyor belt of job people that processes out at the end to be doctors, nurses, policemen, businessmen, shop owners, shop workers, accountants, whatever that might be. taxi drivers, those sorts of things, everything in between, all the jobs that there are. And some people can't work, and that's part of society. But we get taught to do those jobs, and then we go off from school and we do those jobs, and yet again, we try to build up enough money to buy a house and that 25-year mortgage scheme. Now, what's also happening alongside of that is that we are eating food, drinking water, brushing our teeth, spraying deodorant on our bodies, lots and lots of different things which are part of life. And sometimes we get a little bit sick and we take medicine as well. And we mentioned medicine before. And most of these things, I'm sorry if you don't think this, but most of these things contain some degree of poison, some degree of something that's not going to make us benefit, something that's going to have an underlying bad effect over time on our health. And what happens in my country particularly is that we go about our lives starting from very young. All of this stuff is important and told to us that we need to eat certain things and brush our teeth 3 minutes a day, 3 times a day, 3 minutes a day, every day, because otherwise we'll have bad teeth. And we get told that we need to wash our hair every day, and we get told that we need to drink a certain amount of water, and we need to eat lots of carbs, even if we're type 2 diabetic, which really we shouldn't be doing, because that illness shouldn't be called type 2 diabetes. That should be called you put too much sugar inside your body, and that's going to have a very bad effect on your health. You see, we go through life and we follow the rules. We do what we're told to do. We don't have much option in many ways because that's what's available on the shelf. We can't really, many of us, make our own toothpaste. We can't really find water just lying around in the back of our gardens in the spring because not everybody has access to that. And so whatever way we look at things, we're always taking on board these things that we get told are good for us, and yet many of us know that they have their little problems with them. And so we go through these 25 years then of paying mortgage, paying for a house that we think that eventually we will own, and eventually we will have a retirement, and we'll live a happy, wonderful life, enjoying the garden, strolling around, going traveling, living with our young kin and learning many magical things along the way. Except for a lot of people, they tend to get ill towards the end of that 25 years, or certainly just beyond. Because most of those poisonous things, most of those bad things that are accumulating in our body over time, they have a detrimental effect on us. And as a result, by the end of us paying off our mortgage, for example, those toxins, those poisons, those bad things have built up in our bodies and our systems to the point where we're getting quite ill. And when we get quite ill, we need to get some care and support, maybe some more medicine. And if we're not quite polished off by the time that we're taking that extra medicine, then that medicine is going to help to make sure that we're getting much more in need of care. And this is very specific to my country, although it exists in other parts of the world. When we need that care costs money, because it's not like the rest of healthcare that is free majoritarily in my country. When we need that care, we go to a care home or a nursing home, and there's a bill to pay for that. Now, we've worked all of our lives paying into the system and learning the education that those in charge want us to learn to be able to do these jobs, to be able to afford our houses, to be able to have something of our own to show for the life that we've lived, and maybe pass that on to future generations. Except because we're so ill, because we're needing this care, because we've filled our bodies with the poisons and rubbish that we get told are the essential parts of our life, we end up at a position where, in my country, if you don't have enough pension to pay for that care home, that nursing home, and trust me, not many people have enough pensions nowadays to live, let alone pay that bill. We have a house, which is worth some money. And in my country, that house pretty much gets sold from underneath you in order to pay for the care that you need at the end of that process of education to lead you into a job that you don't really want to do, to pay for a house that really you're not going to end up owning, and live a life consuming things that are not necessarily the most beneficial for us, and instead are actually going to limit our lives and make us considerably ill, either during that process and period of our lives through to the very end, where hopefully we're going to have a great time. Except a lot of people are now living in care homes, or sadly no longer with us at an earlier stage than what they should have disappeared. So this process really leads us to the fact that ultimately what we work hard for, what we aim to achieve, because we're told that's what we should achieve, those things are ultimately taken from us, and the only people that really benefit from them are those at the top of society, those who already have far too much. And I'm not looking to make socialism 2.0. I'm not looking to create civil war or anything like that. I'm looking to find peaceful ways. And I have found peaceful ways and solutions that benefit all, like we've mentioned earlier, including a way to stop homelessness and make those houses more affordable for people and support people through buying a house, and get to the point where some of that money that helps those people to buy that house and then comes back in the form of jobs and such like for those very people. That money also creates some profit, and that profit goes to support medical research. That means that ultimately many of us that choose the outcome from that medical research are not going to die quite so early or need the care that many other people might need currently. And therefore we can truly benefit and live longer and healthier and wealthier and happier lives. Again, it's pretty simple, really.
Right. And lives that aren't as full of, when I say pain, it's the various pains of it's a lot when your house gets taken out from under you, when you think you've done everything right and it just doesn't work. It's really disheartening and disconcerting and painful. So, this idea you brought up about peace and peaceful solutions, not doing civil wars. There's a lot of wars going on right now, and a lot of people are not so much the ones who started those wars. We're told that we do support these wars, and what's really kind of interesting is when you talk to your friends and realize that how much we all are aligned to having a life that's peaceful and that's connected to other people who we're aligned with. And that when we talk, we're actually aligned. And yet we're told that, well, the problems are these people and these people who aren't doing their jobs and those people who aren't, and we're looking outside of ourselves for what the solution is, because we're seeing all these problems everywhere. But when we actually come to that place where we're working together and we're working toward what we want, and we're naturally peaceful. Like, it doesn't take a revolution in order to create something like this, but yet the act of it is a peaceful revolution. It's really, that's what I think happens whenever we personally go through something. We have a revolution within ourselves, but this is like a revolution of people coming together, and everybody that we talk to wants some sort of a revolution in their life, or a revolution for their grandchildren, or a revolution for their children,
or even for the people living in tents down
right
the downtown part of town.
Right. We aren't all we're a compassionate people. We want to see people around us thrive, because it makes us feel uncomfortable when other people aren't thriving too. So there's just that. We're people that come together. We're not individual little pixels that are producing whatever it is that somebody else says. We actually, when we just talk, there are a lot of solutions.
When we talk, the truth comes out, because quite often, when we're just listening to the messages that are given to us, like you said about all the wars and things, and we're told, oh, we need to fight this war for democracy. We need to fight this war because these people are being persecuted and maligned, and bad things are happening to them. And we need to do this, that, and the other, because this is the I call it the narrative, as you know, the story that they want us to think. A bit like what we said earlier about brush your teeth 3 times a day for 3 minutes a time, because that's really good for your body. Except you look at the contents of a typical toothpaste tube, and many of the things in there are plastics or oil-based or carcinogenics that really shouldn't be going into our bodies at all, and certainly not in our mouths, one of the most absorbent places in our bodies.
One of the things you said before, which really speaks to this, is that most people aren't making their own toothpaste. They don't necessarily know how, but it's the act of brushing your teeth and getting the stuff off of your teeth and out of you so that they're clean and they don't rot, right? That, sure, that's good for you. But rubbing all that other stuff in that they don't mention is maybe not so good for you. And so going back to the subject of peace, it's true that people are suffering somewhere, right? But when you aren't there and you don't see the whole story, you don't see why they're suffering or what the suffering really is. You just say, they're suffering, we need to do something about it, and we have some sort of a, here's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And then people see all sorts of war and killing. And so what is Democry doing for that?
So like we mentioned earlier, I design big solutions for big problems, and peace and war is one of those big problems. Like you were saying, basically many places around the world and many different places historically, there have been wars and very little peace. Various countries, some of them ones that I've been sat in recently, they really, some of those countries, some of the instigation bodies that sign up to those wars or supply the munitions for those wars, those are the people who profit most from those wars. We don't, people don't. Again, going back to my friend Mr. Ed, and I'm talking about Mr. Ed a little bit because I asked Mr. Ed if it's okay if I can talk about some of the things that he says.
Perfect.
And then just a general everyday working guy driving around in New York City, talking to many other people. And yeah, basically, we look at it this way, in the sense that people at the top, they're the ones that profit from these things like war. And then you've got everybody underneath. And I do mean everybody, whether you've got 100 million in the bank, whether you've got your own business, whether you're working in a baker's shop or you're a cleaner in a hospital, whoever you may be, ultimately, we are the people who pay the price, whether that's through tax or through our children and our families or our loved ones or our communities, where we send people, unfortunately, off to these wars to pay with their lives and effectively, majoritarily, their innocent blood for making rich people even more rich. We have a society that's basically gearing up at the senior level to create more wars and to build up war chests and accumulate more and more bigger and more devastating weapons and use AI to make it more accurate and more quick and more deadly. Those are not the things that we need. my country not long ago, they were talking about how in 5 to 20 years, there's going to be a land war with Russia between us and them. And it depends on your point of view as to who the bad guys are in any given fight. But I see this as more of a wrestling match where we're depicting that there will be a fight. Everybody needs to pay the price for their tickets, whether that's through tax or through their family's blood. But they're going to sit there and watch that fight happen. And there's going to be a couple of people in charge of that wrestling match. The people in the ring, usually two countries, in the sense of war, except they're not the people usually who actually decide who's won and lost. That comes down to some other people, and they're not actually elected leaders or anything like that. And those people decide who, number one, is in that ring, and number two, who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. And number three, which of them is actually going to win. Is that nobody really wins, because it's all lose, lose, lose. And the only people who win are the very people who are making all the money and the power out of those things. So Democry is basically a platform that when it exists will not have any space for hate speech or people's broader opinions about matters, but people's fundamental opinion about matters such as, do we want war or do we want peace? Do you want children to grow up in a place where their lives could be cut short by the very fact that people in power decide that there's a problem somewhere in the world, rather than spending money and effort and energy and time creating more peace and finding ways to collaborate and work together? Instead, they build these bigger, more powerful, more AI-based weapons that are out there to kill all of the other people. Well, I like people, not money. And I already mentioned that. My solution is basically that we use people power instead of the powerful people to decide whether we want war or peace, whether we want all of our lives to be affected by those things, whether it's from people dying and losing their lives and losing their body parts, essentially, in war, and even down to economically the impact that we get told as a result of the war in Ukraine or wherever. And financially, therefore, we're all less well off. And some of us are losing our lives because of various things, such as homelessness. Because many people are affected, like you were mentioning before, by not being able to afford to put food on the table or turn the lights on or pay their rent or their mortgage. And if that's the case, they go to the streets and they may use drugs or they may have other difficulties health-wise. And then eventually those people may die. And for what cost? Because of making money for people through war.
And we hear about the problems, and one of those binary questions is, do we want the problems or do we want the solution? What do we want to actually focus on? The people who have not ended up homeless but are still struggling too, that's something that I call risk. And how close are we to that risk at any period of time? Sometimes we feel like we're really pretty well off. But what if we suddenly get very sick? Or what if our partner gets sick? Or what if we get injured? Or what if something happens and the banks crash? What happens when we have something big go wrong? And, wrong or just part of life. So when it comes down to it, we talk to people and, oh, this is just part of life. This is part of getting old. This is part of living with pollution or living with too much sugar. And some people say, yeah, this has happened all my life and I thought that I was okay. And now I'm really sick. So these things will get us all of a sudden. And our risk goes way up. Whatever it is, the economy crashes, and this is a place that a lot of people have been recently, is the economies they go up, they go down, they go up, they go down.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, we're closer to that point of homelessness. What is your risk of homelessness? Or what is your risk of not having food on the table? What is your risk of not paying your electric bill? What is your risk of not having health care? What is your risk of not being able to be educated? Or having education for your children. These are risk factors that even if we're not homeless, I think probably a lot of people here in the audience can relate to.
Yeah.
Feeling a period of risk. And you come up with a solution to the risk on your own, but then it doesn't pan out. That is not so much the fault of us as that the society and the infrastructure and the environment we live in is not helping us with that solution because it's taking other things away. So when we work together and we talk about this stuff, we find solutions because we each are pretty smart, you know? I mean, people are not, you don't have to look to one brain or one leader to solve all the problems. When we talk, we solve these ourselves. There's a couple of things that are going to happen at this global conference, and they have to do with people talking. There's actually several things. There are going to be speakers bringing up ideas, causing us to question what that risk factor really is when some of these shiny, beautiful people, which we all are, but we don't look at it that way. These people who are showing up on screen or in front of audiences or online, and they're shiny and beautiful, and they have been at the bottom of that risk. They have had all the risk, and it has come down on them, and they've been homeless. And then we're also planning to have a couple of different types of ways in which people discuss stuff. A think-a-thon where we're talking about this stuff and really being able to cloud form new solutions. And then also a rapid twitch think tank. And that and the think tank is so that we can have a short and quick and what occurs to people first about what we can do. And these come up with different kinds of solutions for when, and it's all by people talking. It's not by looking to some leader or to some guru. Nothing against gurus, you know, but we actually have to be involved. And so that evolves for us, for us all.
And very specifically, the people at the pointy end of the stick, you disappeared into the bricks.
I did. I glitched right out.
Those people at the pointy end of the stick, the homeless people there in Las Vegas, and we're hoping to welcome a lot of those people in and give them some food to eat and maybe some other things that some of the local businesses and the wider community are generously complimenting to them.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond that, we're, number one, giving them an opportunity to have some input into our solution.
Mm-hmm.
And then secondly, we're giving them some hope and not just some food on that day or the days that they come, but food for thought in the sense of our process and helping them to discern for us what a dignified transition from being homeless to owning their own property is. And then beyond that, explaining about, to some degree, how our solution our solution works,
Mm-hmm.
and why that is fundamentally different to anything that exists today. It's very simple, but it's very fundamentally and crucially different, because it comes back to social benefit networks, everybody benefiting. And the process of that is that people get real education, people get real support, people get real jobs,
Mm-hmm.
and people generate real money that helps to benefit more and more people. And as a result, we hope to then be able to put into place the wider picture of things like health research that, again, creates real cures and real treatments and other miraculous things that will happen along that route to make life much more beneficial for not just the people that we've taken from the streets, not just the people that we've given jobs to, not just the people that can rent in a much more beneficial way, not just the people who live in those homes, but far beyond that, to real change that makes the world a much more beautiful place, because it's based on the dreams that we all had when we were younger, and much more people alive because they're not dying due to some of these poisons and some of the wars that kill us all off. And that way we can generate money into economies that support us all and grow our economies and make fundamentally it possible for businesses to flourish. That means that we can pay tax responsibly to hopefully a government that will see that people power has made all of these happen, not them. People, not them, because people are the important thing. People are not the problem. You are not the problem. We are all the solution. And by being that solution, that's how we make miracles happen. And the biggest miracle is that we change everything from the way it is now to being beneficial for us all.
We're all people too, and it's the thing. I mean, even our leaders, our leaders are people, and this is just a crucial element that sometimes we think that there's something different among us, but we're all people, and so this solution actually works for everyone. And the interesting thing is, it's also not a charity. There are so many people among us, beautiful people who are trying to give, and this is a solution that's part of a business in which everyone can benefit. Everybody, and I say can benefit. Will they benefit? You have to actually be involved in order to have a benefit. But will others benefit? Yeah, because there's a ripple effect when economies get better, when our neighborhoods, right from the inside of the neighborhood, get healthier and happier and more thriving in a business sense. Businesses started once upon a time with humans. Human businesses are not their own things. They are not bringing us down. We're bringing us down. We need to rise ourselves up by creating a new type of business. And that's what this really is.
Yep.
I mean, it's just such a joyful path, because the ripple effect in all of these neighborhoods, and these for our children, for our elders, is that people are not at so much risk. People are thriving, and people are engaged, and people are respected and given education and given hope.
And
So,
dignity.
and dignity is something that a lot of people just don't have right now. So, yeah, this is what we're doing. We'll put the as you follow us and watch whatever format you're watching this on. We're going to put more and more information about the Kudos Global Conference up, and including in the show notes and in the comments. so that you can, if you happen to be in the Las Vegas area, you can join us. We'd love to have you. And if you aren't, you're going to be able to see this online because it's a hybrid event. So that's really super exciting. What else do we want to tell people before we close out the show? Because we're at the top of the hour now.
There's a couple of things that you mentioned about everybody's trying to support their individual sphere of where they're at, whether that be their families or their friends, or some people supporting their communities, and some people doing things on a much bigger scale as well. But the way that I look at that is currently many people and organizations are getting sticky plasters to stick onto a lot of cuts and bruises that exist for many other people. And the number of people that are having those cuts and bruises is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And those cuts and bruises are getting worse and worse and worse. And the shop that those people that are trying to help and the organizations that are trying to do the right thing by those people, they go to the shop to buy more plasters to stick on those bigger, ever-growing cuts and bruises. And those plasters are running out because they're still part of the old traditional system whereby only the people at the top really have access to enough sticky plasters for them and enough money to buy those sticky plasters. And they don't need to worry about that. It's just everybody below them. Well, time for sticky plasters has gone. Now it's time for big solutions. And those big solutions are here. They're various things like solving homelessness and how people can afford to buy homes in the future, to promoting jobs and changing economies, through to making peace a real tangible thing for all time. And those things are coming. In fact, those things are pretty much here because time is ready for change. And we're going to make that change a beneficial one for everybody. I hope everybody who's watching and listening is on board with making change and wants to see benefit for them, their families, their communities, their loved ones, and for everybody else in the world. Because like you said, we are all people, and the only time and thing that is important currently is that we understand that together we can make those changes happen. If we don't work together, maybe everything is already lost. But on that vote, it's time to smile. Because if you are on board with what I'm talking about, if you do see hope for the future, if you do want to see change and want to see your children and your grandchildren, even if you don't have those, other people's children and grandchildren, or the future of the world, whatever you may see that as, if you want that to exist, if you want that to be a free society where people are able to love and do what they please, then you need to be on board. You need to think about how we're going to make that change happen. I can make that happen, but I need people's support, and I need people to be involved and committed to doing that. It's the only way forwards to work together, and that word work is very important in there. So yeah, I think that about covers things for now.
Yeah, we can't keep going on with bigger and bigger problems and patching them over. There's not enough patch. Anyway, if this is your first time, or if this is your umpteenth time and you like this, please hit like. And if you are not already a subscriber and you're on the YouTube channel, please ever so gently push the subscribe button and follow us on LinkedIn, follow us on Facebook, and we'll see you next time on the Joyful Path.
In fact, don't push it, just gently tickle it into submission so that then it eases you into subscribing to the channel. There'll be details as well about Kudos in many respects, including our own unique YouTube channel, where we describe and put videos about different things, including some of the wider solutions to some of the biggest problems in our world. Again, you can feel free to tickle that subscribe button if you would like to as well.
All right. Thanks for being with me, and thank you for coming over from England. This is a real treat. I love it.
You've not pressed the button. Come on.
Trying to press the button.
Just tickle it. That was cool. Was there anybody? Is that stuff that you wrote? Oh.
No.